Hello ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to another No One Is Playing video. Today we're taking a look at the Culling. You've already seen me dissect Scum and Atlas, why no one is playing both of them games in early access, and we've taken a look at Rend, a game that is no longer functioning. You will not be able to play it. That is the case with the Culling. Servers went offline this week. In fact, they went off on the 15th. What exactly has happened to this game? In fact, what has happened to this development studio? Over the last few years, they have been at the top of their game, being one of the best, most played games on Steam when it first arrived. They quickly went from that though to hardly anyone playing it, amongst other dubious things, launching a second game that was going to be on PlayStation 4, ended up being a cash grab and being refunded, as well as relaunching the first one. This is absolutely messy, and I'm going to explain everything you need to know why no one is playing the Culling. Launching on Steam in 2016, the Culling was a 16-player battle royale. There have been battle royals before this, including H1Z1 and lots of modded games on PC, but this really was a big popular turning point for battle royale. Before PUBG, before Fortnite, this really was one of the most hyped up games you could play on Steam for around 6 weeks to 8 weeks. Even before the Goliaths of Fortnite and PUBG really made their way on the scene though, Culling had issues and it started to lose its player base. They tried updating the game very quickly, adding lots of big changing features. The Culling was a more melee focused battle royale. As I said, only 16 players. You would craft your weapons as you progress, earning funk points which you could go towards upgrading and getting new weapons. It's a pretty good solid idea, and actually revisiting it today for this video, I really find that it's still a great game. The ideas, the way that you craft, the way that you survive, and obviously take on other players with the combat, upgrading weapons, as well as having all of these sort of style stim shots which you can use to buff yourself. Lots of great ideas, lots of customization. You could customize exactly what type of drops would come in once you reached a certain level of funk. You could steal other players' loot drops, and of course you could steal their loot. It was pretty fast, it was pretty frenetic, being dropped onto a map. They added another map during the early access period, and so there was 2 decent sized maps with lots of features. You could set up traps for players, and there was also in-map features. You could turn on gas valves or suddenly take a control of bridges and stop other players being able to chase you. With the huge leaderboard in the sky dictating and showing you exactly what was going on with other players, who was alive, the closing circle got smaller and smaller, and as you got closer to the end, you was able to unlock better weapons. It really was a time before the shooters really become more popular in terms of Battle Royale. H1Z1 was on the wane and PUBG was just about to come out and smash the game apart. But the Culling really just couldn't keep up its player base. They were really unhappy with changes they made, and it seems really superficial, but something as simple as block and attack really divided the community that were playing this game. They changed it and they made it basically that it wasn't a key component anymore. You could basically just spam and attack people, and that was a real issue for a lot of players. They really couldn't get to grips with why Xaviant, the developers, had made these changes. It wasn't just the combat that was changing though, they really weren't adding maybe enough features to keep up. These type of games live and die by the live services they provide, hence why Fortnite is so popular still. They continuously update the game for good and bad. Other games have tried it and other games just simply don't bother, or their updates come very far between. Look at Apex Legends right now, going through a bit of a quiet patch because they just haven't been able to sustain the updates the community want. And this was no different. Even though there wasn't as much competition, the Culling still just couldn't keep up with brand new content to keep players invested, to keep people watching Twitchers and YouTubers play the game. Now that's just my opinion based on everything that was going around at the time. I gave this a try when it did come out. I really enjoyed it. It was right around the same time that Ark Survival Evolved was getting massive, and so this looked like a really good fix. Not on top of that, we had Survival of the Fittest. That was another battle royale that Ark Survival Evolved were working on, and this seemed to be a good preparation for that. But then the developers really started being a little bit shady and making some really bad decisions. Towards the end of 2017, they decided to halt production altogether of the Culling. Now that's what it says on the wiki, but as far as I'm aware, they just really decided that the game was finished. They said they wouldn't be adding any more content to it and it would leave early access very soon. By this point, the player numbers were absolutely at their lowest. It all started so well. Back in 2016, 12,000 players logged on in the first month of playing at its peak in any given hour on their best day. A month later, that had dropped down. 3 months later, it dropped down to only 1,000 players playing it. That isn't the end of the world. Believe it or not, these games tend to really go big on their updates. As I mentioned, updates are really the lifeblood of these type of games, keeping fresh content coming. Players weren't seeing that happening, or the changes that were coming into the game they really didn't like. They had a couple little bumps when they added some more content, but by the time December 2017 rolls around, they've only got 50 people playing it at its peak on any given day. So developers decided to cease production. They said they weren't going to be updating the game anymore, and it would come out of early access as a finished product. And this doesn't sound too bad. The developers are recognising their game hasn't done as well as they wanted to, or they're just going to move on to something else, complete the game, finish it, label it as done, and move on to the next project. Except their next project was the Culling 2, a direct sequel only a few months after the early access version had gone gold. This came out on the PlayStation 4 and it pretty much abandoned everything that made the original Culling good. It was basically a H1Z1 PUBG hybrid copy. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing if it actually plays okay, but it was atrocious, cheap, horrible implemented, really just trying to get on top of the whole bandwagon with Battle Royales. The Culling 2 quickly received a whole host of negative press releases and reception from players. So bad was it that the lead developer ended up making a statement and a video apologising for the Culling 2 and offering full refunds for anyone that purchased it. This was a significant move. The media team tried to spin it off and they realised that they'd made a massive colossal error, and they decided to go back to the Culling 1 and try and update that game. To hopefully spread some goodwill and maybe go as a new business model, they made the original Culling game free to play. It was in fact quite an expensive game for what it was, particularly when it went round onto the Xbox. After full release it was $24.99 out of early access, and during the early access period I think it was around $18.99. Quite a lot of money for something that really didn't have that much to it. This is why Battle Royales tend to die out, because they just don't have enough content to keep players playing. But they went free to play. They decided to see if they could make it this way. They added a bunch of skins that you could buy, microtransactions, not to help you in the game itself, only cosmetic only. Despite all the negativity about their dodgy practices releasing the Culling 2, they managed to get some players back to the game, and it had one of its highest points in over 2 years. It eventually ended up on the Xbox, and after a few months of being paid, it did also go free to play like the PC version. My tips guide was pretty popular at the time. Just about the full launch of Ark Survival Evolved, it's when it hit the Xbox, and I got a good amount of views for something that really wasn't part and parcel of my daily content. I really enjoyed the Culling. It weren't going to win prizes for the best looking game or the most well made, but it had something about it. It was fun, it was silly, it was irrelevant, but it also was quite addictive. Running around, opening up supply crates, building up your funk level so you could get better airdrops, and obviously taking on all the other players. It had funny moments from the commentator as well that would give you little heads up about players being taken out, and of course you could always keep track with that big leaderboard. So the developers, very much embarrassed by their stupid decision making, went back to the Culling and labelled it Origins. They decided to put back the changes that they'd originally taken out that pissed off so much the community, and a lot of players were happy with this, but it just simply wasn't enough to keep it sustained. Victory only lasted a few weeks before the Culling started losing numbers again. By this point it was probably just too late. There were already too many battle royales vying for people's attention, either watching it or playing it. And even though many of the battle royals around really didn't have that melee aspect, that survival or crafting aspect that the Culling did, it just simply couldn't find another audience. The whole business with the Culling 2 really put a negative spin on stuff as well, and it just made everyone think the game and the company making it were pretty much a cash grab joke. Greetings contestants, the Cullen has had a wild ride. Since the game's original launch in March 2016, more than 3 million of you have tested your resolve on the island, with nearly half that number joining the fray since the Cullen Origins became free to play on Xbox One last November. The game servers have run continuously with the stray outage here and there for 3 years, but time has come for us to announce that we'll be taking the Cullen offline on May the 15th, 2019. While the Cullen's offline modes will remain available after the update, online play and associated features will not. To that end, the game store pages and in-app purchases will be disabled as soon as possible. That statement in March signalled the death of the Cullen. No one was going to be able to play online against other players anymore, and that happened this week. You can go on the Cullen right now and you can play their offline modes against bots and various other survival games. You can still go ahead and choose your classes and weapons, but you'll no longer be able to access anything you've purchased via the cosmetics store or any other brand new supply drops. You can't even customise your character anymore in terms of looks or what they're wearing. It's a real shame. As I'm showing you here, there is a lot of depth really beneath this. Even though it's just a very small focused melee battle royale game, the terms of the perks that you could give yourself really were something I think another game developer could come along and do something with. Maybe on a bigger wholesale gameplay experience, maybe making it much more about survival rather than just very short matches, or the other way round, keep more players involved, make it a 32 player battle royale. I'm not too sure. I don't know if the battle royale genre is going to sustain much longer. It seems only the biggest are going to be around forever. So many games have come and gone in terms of the battle royale hype, but the Culling really was different, and it was one of the first. Xavian have obviously had to reduce their staff members. They're really running around on a bone skeleton crew, and I really hope whatever they're working on is a success, because they had some great ideas for this game, but they clearly were just struggling for money, couldn't get the investment to keep their studio alive, hence why they made such really bad decisions with the Culling 2, and also maybe with even the original game. They just probably run out of money to make more updates for the game or to hire the people that could bring it to the next level. And so of May the 15th, you can no longer play the Culling. You were boom, you were bust. You really highlighted the pitfalls of early access and what happens when these games overhype stuff, launch with big streamers and tubers playing them, and then they're quickly forgotten about once some of these content creators move on. I think it's important to talk about that a little bit, because more and more it's happening. Developers are giving money to marketers. They're making games like these bigger than they are by offering streamers and YouTubers lots of paid promo, or just giving simply keys to absolutely everyone to make the game look much bigger or better than it maybe was. Once these streams or tubers have done, they've been paid, they're not going to stick around. Even if the game is good, they're going to go back to what gets them the views. And I think more and more developers need to be wary of this. It can be great sustaining and really launching your game, but you've got to have the stuff to keep up with demand, and you've got to show that you can improve and iterate in the right way. Xavian just never did that. It's a real shame, but that is the tale of the Culling and why no one is playing, or no one will be playing again on the live servers. I am Jade. For more in-depth tutorials, guides and news, go and check out my channel and keep locked on for the next No One Is Playing series. If you like seeing something a bit more positive, check out my Everyone Is Playing. I talked about the Risk of Rain game that everyone's been playing lately. I've also been discussing games like The Forager. There's so many great games that people are playing, so do go and check out the positive side too. Until next time, rat bags, laters.